My husband's family said I should be grateful. He cheats because he provides for me. So I exposed his affair at his mother's birthday dinner and watched their smiles disappear one by one. I'm 31F. My husband is 36. We've been married 5 years. We have a 3-year-old daughter, Nora. For months, I let the little things sit because every time I raised them, I was told the exact same thing. Don't be dramatic. Be grateful. He provides for you. That line from his mother became a shield for him and a muzzle for me. I tried to be reasonable. That didn't work. So I planned a moment where reasonable wouldn't be enough, and where the people who kept echoing that line would have to look at facts instead of repeating the script they were comfortable with. If you want the short version, his family defended him when I complained. I quietly gathered proof over months. I showed that proof at his mother's birthday dinner, and the smiles in the room fell away faster than I expected. If you want the long version, how I got the evidence and what happened after, read on. He's charming in a room. He's the kind of man people like instantly. Cheerful, smooth, the polite voice on a speakerphone. He's also the type whose career and social image make him valuable to a family that measures success in stability and bank balances. When I started asking about lipstick, late nights, and unexplained receipts, the response was always the same from his side of the table. It must be your insecurity. Men need privacy. At least you're not struggling financially. They framed his absences as sacrifice and my questions as ingratitude. It began small, a lipstick stain on the collar of his jacket, a receipt for a hotel bar in a pocket he swore he'd never been to, a friend tagging him in photos at a place he'd said was at a client dinner. I confronted him the first time quietly. He smiled that patronizing smile and said, "You're overreacting." He called me jealous or tired or dramatic whenever my voice got sharp. When I told his sister, she told me to pick my battles. When I told his mother, Evelyn, she said, "You're lucky he provides." Think about that before you make waves. That sentence echoed in my head until it became a dare. If being provided for meant being lied to and embarrassed in quiet ways, I'd rather be poor and honest. I didn't plan fireworks. I planned clarity. I started collecting modest, legal things that could not easily be spun. Screenshots that had been sent to me accidentally. A message intended for someone else that had my husband tagged. A napkin with lipstick he'd shoved in his jacket pocket. Copies of dinners and hotel receipts that didn't match any client list. I kept every weird text preview that showed up on our shared calendar and wrote down dates. I asked one of his coworkers, off the record, whether the team offsite he claimed involved sleeping in hotels was accurate. They said no. They'd been local. I didn't hack anything. I didn't break into accounts. I gathered what landed in my life by mistake or by negligence. The more I found, the angrier I got. Not the hot, public anger, but the patient, slow kind that mounts a case. I told his family once, quietly, in the early months. Evelyn cut me off. "Hannah, don't be ridiculous. Men have connections. He's under a lot of pressure. You're making him look small." The family folded into that version. They repeated that line for months. Be grateful. He provides. It felt like gaslighting by chorus. So I decided to take the only space the family paid attention to, Evelyn's birthday dinner. They all show up. Everyone loves a family gathering. If I put evidence where the people who kept telling me to swallow it were forced to look, the story might finally be something they couldn't ignore. Update, the night of the birthday. I spent the day pretending everything was normal. I made Evelyn's requested lemon cake. I used the good plates because she'd always liked them. Her kitchen was full of the usual chatter when people arrived. Jokes, chocolates, the kind of small talk that makes a house feel like belonging. My heart hammered, but not because I was performing a spectacle, because I was opening a wound. I placed a simple manila folder by my seat. Inside, a printout of a chain of messages that a friend had forwarded to me accidentally. Messages between my husband, Jason, and a woman named Lila where they used pet names and planned nights. A receipt from a hotel bar that matched a night he'd told me he'd been on call. And a napkin with lipstick I'd taken from his jacket pocket after he came home smelling of someone else's perfume. I also had a timeline, dates next to small notes, that tied those items to iffy explanations he'd given me. I am not naive. I expected people to defend him. I expected Evelyn to shield him. I expected backlash. I just didn't expect them to be so ready to believe the gentler story and to gaslight me when I'd already been living it. When we finished the main course and they started singing Happy Birthday, I stood up. I said, "Can I have everyone's attention for a minute?" The room quieted. I didn't theatrically slam the folder down. I placed it on the table and said calmly, "This is hard for me to say, and I'd hoped I wouldn't have to say it here, but I need you to see the truth." Jason laughed in that nervous way and said, "What are you doing?" Evelyn looked confused, then annoyed. "Hannah," she said, "this is a celebration." I said, "I know. I'm sorry." But this is exactly where people keep choosing to believe a story that isn't true. I want the facts on the table. Then I put the prints and the napkin between us, and I read a single message aloud, the kind of small, ordinary cruelty that made it impossible to spin away. Come over after dinner. I'll be at room 415, it read. I held up the receipt that matched that date. I held up the napkin. I didn't scream. I didn't accuse with florid detail. I let the item speak. The smile fall was slow at first, like watching someone realize a joke has gone wrong. Jason froze, then flushed. Evelyn's face strained. The smile that had been on her face for the cake photos slipped off like a mask. His sister's hand flew to her mouth. Someone asked, "Is this true?" Jason tried the usual move. "You invaded my privacy," he said, loud enough to ricochet. "This is humiliating." His mother came alive in a way I'd never seen. Fierce, sharp, and suddenly a woman I didn't recognize. "Hannah, how dare you bring this here?" she hissed. But in the same breath her voice had a crack in it, the kind a person gets when a comfortable story breaks. For every person who initially voiced outrage at what I'd done, there was another who looked at the paper, and then at Jason, and felt the lines shift. Jason started to plead, then to blame. "You don't understand context," he said. "These are texts taken out of context." He called me dramatic and unstable in front of his sister. He asked his friends to vouch. A cousin who'd always laughed at my jokes said, quietly, "If these are real, that's bad." The room scattered between awkwardness, anger, and the tiny, loud sound of something honest breaking. He left. He stormed out of the house, slamming the door. Evelyn followed him out the porch for a few frantic sentences that I heard muffled. Her saying he's her son, his reply higher and desperate. I sat with the folder in my lap and tried to steady my breathing. Milo was asleep in the playroom upstairs. He'd missed most of it. Thank God. Update. The next morning, the texts and calls started fast. Family group chats went haywire. His sister accused me of public humiliation. His mother called, voice shaky, alternating between fury and pleading. "Hannah, you made him look small in front of people," she said. "You could have just talked privately." I told her I had talked privately for months. She said she didn't believe me. That hurt more than any insult. A couple of his cousins messaged privately and said they were sorry. They'd suspected things, but nobody wanted to be the one to say it. A friend of Jason's texted me asking why I had to drag family through this. I answered with the clean truth. Because they were repeating the story that made it okay for him to do this. Jason called that day 10 times. He texted worse. He told me I'd ruined everything, that I'd humiliated him, and that I'd taken a child from a family. I didn't pick up. I sat with Milo that afternoon and read him a book. He asked later at dinner, "Why is Papa not at the table?" I answered with an age-appropriate line. "Papa's talking about some grown-up stuff. We'll have pancakes on Saturday, though." He hugged my leg and asked for more milk. The normalcy of those little things steadied me. Update, 3 weeks later. The fallout fragmented them. A few people cut Jason slack at first. Loyalty is a heavy thing, but then small confirmations trickled out. A bartender friend texted a witness account of dates matching the receipts. A coworker admitted he'd seen photos Jason had posted privately. The little things validated the folder. The family that had been so ready to police my feelings had to reconcile their image of a son and brother with a woman's folder on a kitchen table. Jason tried to apologize to everyone, publicly, privately. He asked me to take it down. He begged his mother. She cried, sat with him, and told me I was cruel. That hurt, because she is the one person I'd once thought of as steady. But the cracks in her certainty widened when her close friend, someone whose opinion she trusts, asked, quietly, "Did you ask Hannah for her side before you decided he was the victim?" That was a hinge point. I filed for separation. I had a lawyer consult. I didn't want to fight for drama. I wanted stability for Milo. We arranged custody that put Nora with me during the week and with Jason 2 days on weekends for now. It's not perfect, but he needs a structure if he's going to be reliable. An inconsistent parent isn't good for a kid. Final, 4 months later. 4 months after the birthday dinner. The house is mine in a more honest way. I moved us into a new apartment that's close to Nora's preschool. I painted a wall a ridiculous blue because someone online said it made small rooms feel cheerful. I went back to work part-time and rebuilt a small social circle that doesn't lecture me about gratitude. Milo is sleeping through the night more, and he remembers more of the silly little family rituals than the big fights. Jason is quieter on social media. He lost a couple of client gigs that relied on his upstanding family man image. That stung him in practical ways. Evelyn stopped posting family photos for a while. Some family members stopped talking to me and some started calling awkward and apologetic. That's the thing about truth. It rearranges a room, and some people don't like the new furniture. Did I regret exposing him at his mother's birthday? Not for a second. I regret that a child had to witness a fracture, but the alternative, letting the family rewrite the narrative and letting my daughter believe her father left us for no reason, felt worse. The dinner was a moment of clarity. It made the version of events we'd been living into something other people could see and judge. It forced accountability. On the last move-out day, I left a single note on the counter in the old house. Not angry, just practical. Be better for Nora. She needs both parents who don't lie to her. Then I locked the door, turned the key, and carried my daughter outside to a blue-painted room that smelled like possibility. The smiles at Evelyn's table had disappeared the night I put the folder on the table, and some of them never came back. That was the point. This is the end.